Our God is God of abundance. God that provides for his children. God that satisfies their needs. God that takes care of his own. Even when the going is getting tough, that is still God of abundance. Jesus is convinced that our God is God of abundance. And he said, collect the 5 loaves from that boy and the 2 fish, and let the people sit down. He gave thanks and gave it to them to distribute. When he prayed, we were not told that the 5 loaves became 100 loaves. We are not told that it became 100 loaves. We are not told that the fish multiplied and bread was everywhere when he prayed. Bread was not everywhere. When he prayed, he gave them the 5 loaves and said, share it to them. They started sharing. And as they were sharing, tearing bread and giving, tearing fish and giving to people, they were still tearing and giving, and it's not finishing. There was no multiplication everywhere so that they would start sharing a massive heap of food. But they were sharing to the extent that somebody that is having loaf in his hand is not finishing. If he looks, the loaf is still there. And those having fish were still sharing, and the fish was not finishing. And this miracle of abundance was not that he said, let there be bread, and there was bread everywhere. It was from giving. The same thing happened in the case of Elijah, where he was in the bush. The widow came to gather woods, to gather firewood, to make food for herself and her child. He said to her first, please, can you get me water to drink? The woman said, well then. And Elijah said, as you come, can you make small food for me? The widow turned to Elijah and smiled and said, if you know me, you will not be asking me for food. Because I am here to gather the firewood and prepare the last meal remaining in my house for me and my son to eat. Then after eating this one, we will wait to die. Elijah said to her, still go, and when you make for yourself and your son, bring some for me, because the Lord says there will be abundance, that the bowl will not run dry, and the jar of oil will not run dry. And not that she went into her house and looked, and her bowl of flour was full of flour, or jar of oil filled to brim. But she was giving, and still what she was having, her resources were not finishing. It is said that grace builds on nature. God uses what we have to produce what we don't have. Because God is God of abundance. When we are sharing from the meager resources we're having, from the little we are having, you will feel God's provisions. You will feel God's abundance. When you give from the little you have, we don't need to be millionaires before we begin to give. We don't need to be billionaires before we begin to give. If we have hearts of generosity, people that know what it means to be generous, even in this situation we are in our country, Nigeria, the situation we are in Africa, if we are generous, what we have is what God wants to use to bring abundance. Heart of charity can make all of us to be satisfied. Heart of charity. If we can share with the little we have, let others have from the little we have. God will multiply. God will manifest His abundance nature. Those who are already having heart of generosity, you understand what I'm talking about. You may not be a millionaire, but you are not lacking.